I stared at the undeniable truth, unable to reconcile it with 5 years of marriage. My hands trembled, but my resolve hardened like setting concrete. They wouldn't get away with this. My name is Douglas Jefferson, and I'm 33 years old. I spend my days fixing engines at Jefferson Auto Works, the shop I built from nothing after leaving the chain garage. Alisa Jefferson, my wife, had grown distant these past months. Now I understood why. Raymond Ellis, my former mentor and owner of Ellis Automotive, confirmed what my gut had whispered. Someone wanted you in the ground, Doug. His weathered face had aged 10 years delivering those words. Devin Carver, Alisa's work friend, wasn't just a colleague. His fingerprints were all over this plan. I'd seen them together, heads bent close at that cafe. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I locked the shop door around 11, later than usual. We'd had 3 emergency oil changes back to back, plus a transmission rebuild that fought me every step of the way. My shoulders ached as I walked to my car, keys jingling in rhythm with my footsteps across the empty parking lot. The night air had that sticky Louisiana thickness to it, the kind that makes your shirt cling to your back even after the sun's been down for hours. I fired up the engine of my Chevy, not new but reliable, just how I liked it, and pulled onto the empty street. The dashboard clock read 11:27. Alisa would be asleep by now, or at least pretending to be. County Road 9 stretched out ahead, a winding ribbon of asphalt flanked by pine trees that made the darkness feel complete. I'd driven this route hundreds of times, knew every curve and dip by memory. The radio played some country song about regret while I thought about tomorrow's appointments. That's when it happened. I approached the long curve near Miller's Creek, easing off the gas like always. My foot went for the brake pedal, pressed down, and kept going. The pedal sank straight to the floor with no resistance. None. My heart skipped. I pumped the brake again. Nothing. Just emptiness where pressure should be. The curve rushed toward me. I yanked the emergency brake and downshifted hard, but momentum had me in its grip. The tires squealed against pavement. The guardrail was coming fast, too fast. No, no, no. The car fishtailed, then plunged sideways. There was a moment of surreal stillness before impact, like the world paused to let me understand what was happening. Then everything exploded. Metal shrieked. The airbag punched my chest and face with a force that knocked the wind from my lungs. Glass rained down as the driver's side window shattered. The world spun, and I was suddenly upside down, then right side up again as the car slid down the embankment and came to rest at a sickening angle in the ditch. Smoke or steam hissed from the hood. The smell of burnt rubber and something chemical filled my nose. Blood trickled from a cut above my eye, warm and sticky against my skin. I fumbled with the seatbelt, my fingers clumsy and thick with shock. Got to get out. Got to get out now. The door was crushed, wouldn't budge. I dragged myself across the center console and shouldered open the passenger door, falling rather than stepping onto the grassy slope. My knees buckled. I crawled away from the wreck, gasping, each breath burning my throat. Headlights appeared on the road above. A truck slowed, then stopped. Heavy boots hit the pavement. Holy shit, man. You okay? A bearded guy in a trucker cap scrambled down the embankment toward me. Brakes failed. I managed, my voice hoarse and strange to my own ears. He helped me up the slope, supporting my weight with a strong grip. Ambulance? He asked, already pulling out his phone. I nodded, staring back at my crumpled car. Something wasn't right. I'd maintained that car myself. New brake fluid just last month. The trucker called 911 while I leaned against his truck, trembling from adrenaline and something else. Something that felt like the beginning of understanding. Hours later, I stood beside Raymond Ellis in his garage. My car had been towed there after the paramedics checked me out. 3 stitches above my eye and bruised ribs were miraculously all I had to show for the crash. Raymond's face was grim as he pointed his flashlight at the undercarriage. "Look here," he said, voice low as if someone might be listening. I bent down to see what he was showing me. The brake line wasn't frayed or worn through. The cut was clean, precise, deliberate. "That's no rust job," Raymond said quietly, eyes meeting mine. "Someone did this, Doug. Cold realization washed over me. This wasn't an accident. Someone had wanted me to crash. Someone had wanted me gone. Raymond loaned me his old pickup for the drive home. Dawn was breaking as I pulled away, the eastern sky lightening to pale gray. My mind replayed the crash in endless loops. The failed brake, the curve rushing toward me, the moment I understood I might die. When I turned into my driveway, our porch light was on. Alisa stood on the steps in her silk robe, wine glass in hand, expression placid. Not worried, not relieved. Just watching, like she'd been up all night waiting for news that hadn't come. "Where have you been?" she asked, tone more curious than concerned. I stepped out of Raymond's truck, bruised face and blood-stained shirt telling a story she should have been frantic to hear. "I almost died tonight," I said, voice hollow. She sipped her wine, eyes flickering over my injuries with clinical detachment. "You look like you need a shower." In that moment, as the morning sun began to crest the horizon, a terrible thought formed in my mind. If she didn't care, I almost died. Maybe she already knew. Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, catching dust motes that danced in the air. I leaned against the counter, coffee mug in hand, watching Alisa scroll through her tablet. The bruise on my forehead had darkened overnight and my ribs ached with every breath. She hadn't asked about either. "Raymond Ellis looked at the car," I said, my voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath. "He found something interesting." Alisa barely glanced up, manicured finger swiping across her screen. "Oh?" "The brake line was cut, Alisa. Not worn, not rusted. Cut." She set her tablet down slowly, face blank. "Car's age, Douglas," she said, voice flat. "Things break. Things break," I repeated, knuckles whitening around my mug. "But brake lines don't cut themselves with wire cutters." Something flickered behind her eyes, annoyance, not fear. "So what are you saying? Someone sabotaged your car?" She picked up her coffee, sipped it casually. Who would do that? I remembered how we used to share breakfast before work, her legs tucked under her chair, stealing bites of my toast, laughing at nothing. The memory felt like it belonged to someone else's life. "That's what I've been asking myself," I said. And some things started making sense, like that insurance policy you insisted we get 6 months ago. Her cup paused halfway to her lips. "Responsible adults have life insurance, Douglas. That's what people do when they grow up. And the new phone you never leave face up? The one you take into the bathroom when you shower?" Alisa's eyes narrowed. "Are you spying on me?" I saw the texts, Alisa. To Devon, about money and plans. Something changed in her posture, a slight stiffening of her spine. But her voice remained cool. "You're being paranoid." "Paranoid?" I slammed my mug down, coffee sloshing over the rim. "I almost died last night. Raymond says someone wanted me dead and you're sitting there like we're discussing the weather." She stood up, smoothing her silk blouse. "I'm not going to engage with this. You hit your head, you're upset, and you're looking for someone to blame." "Who's Devon?" I demanded. Her eyes flashed with something like contempt. "A friend," she said. "Someone who listens, someone who doesn't accuse me of attempted murder over car trouble." "Car trouble?" I stepped closer. "Is that what you call a cut brake line?" "I call this conversation over," she said, picking up her tablet and purse. "When you've calmed down, maybe we can talk like adults." I grabbed her arm as she tried to brush past me. "The brakes were cut." Alisa looked down at my hand, then up at my face. A thin smile formed on her lips. "Let go of me, Douglas, you're making a scene. There's no one here to see it. That doesn't mean it isn't happening." She pulled away, adjusting her sleeve where I'd gripped it. "I'm late for lunch with Sarah." The coldness in her eyes chilled me. This wasn't the woman I'd married, or maybe it was and I'd never really seen her before. "We're not done talking about this," I said. She paused at the doorway, that same thin smile playing at her lips. "Yes, Douglas, we are." The front door closed behind her with a soft click. I stood alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the life we'd built, wedding photos on the wall, the coffee maker I'd bought her last Christmas, the stupid decorative towels that were for looks, not for use. It all seemed like a prop now, a movie set where we'd been playing parts. Except her performance had been better than mine. I walked outside to Raymond's borrowed truck and sat behind the wheel, not starting it, just staring at our house. The weight of disbelief was giving way to something harder, sharper. Suspicion had teeth, and they were sinking in deep. The day faded to dusk. I'd been sitting there for hours, piecing together 1,000 tiny moments that hadn't seemed important at the time. The insurance calls, the sudden interest in my work schedule, the way she'd started asking which routes I took home. Movement caught my eye. A silhouette in our upstairs window. Alisa, watching me. The blue glow of a phone screen illuminated her face for a moment before she stepped back from view. If she planned one accident, I muttered to myself, she'll plan another. I woke up on Raymond's couch, back aching from the lumpy cushions, but at least I'd slept. After that confrontation in the kitchen, I couldn't stomach going back to our bed. Not with her lying there, probably texting Devon about their failed plan. Raymond had opened the door at 10 p.m. without questions. "Spare blankets in the closet," was all he'd said. Good men don't need explanations when someone's in trouble. The morning brought clarity. If Alisa wanted me dead, I needed proof that would stick, not just accusations. That meant evidence, witnesses, and staying alive long enough to use them. I opened the shop at 7 sharp like nothing had changed. Mrs. Daniels brought in her Civic for an oil change. The Henderson kid needed new spark plugs. Normal day, normal Douglas. Except I was counting minutes, watching shadows, planning. "You look like hell," Troy, my part-timer, said when he walked in at 9. "Long night," I answered, sliding under the Civic. "Hey, hand me that filter wrench." Between customers, I drove to the hardware store 3 towns over. Less chance of being seen. Bought a small security camera, not fancy, but good enough to catch movement and store footage to an SD card. When Troy went for lunch, I installed it above the side door of the shop, angled toward the parking area. If Alisa came back to try again, I'd have it on film. The afternoon crawled by. Oil changes, timing belts, tire rotations. My hands worked while my mind churned through possibilities. Who exactly was Devon? Why risk murder instead of divorce? That life insurance policy was substantial, but not fortune-making. There had to be more. After closing, I sat in the office with the lights off, my laptop glowing blue. First, I checked Alisa's Instagram. Nothing unusual. Brunch photos, quotes about living your best life, a selfie from yesterday with a caption about new beginnings. The timing made my stomach turn. Then I searched for Devon. It took some digging. Alisa had never mentioned a last name, but I found him through mutual connections. Devon Carver, self-described fitness influencer, page full of workout videos, supplement ads, and posed shots in tight t-shirts. I scrolled through his recent posts and there it was. 4 days ago. Devon at his gym, posing next to a row of cars in the parking lot. In the background, barely visible but unmistakable, my sedan. The custom pinstriping I'd added myself caught the light just enough to identify it. The timestamp read 6:42 p.m., just hours before my accident. "Got you," I whispered, hitting print on every screenshot I could gather. My hands shook as I collected the pages. This was it. Proof they knew each other. Proof they'd met. Not enough for court, maybe, but enough to start building a case. I called Detective Ruiz at the number on her old business card. We weren't close friends, but she'd been a regular at the shop before her promotion, and Raymond spoke highly of her. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Ruiz." "Detective, it's Douglas Jefferson from Jefferson Auto Works." A pause. "The one who fixed my Subaru last year?" "Yes, ma'am. I need your help. It's complicated." I laid it out for her. The cut brake lines, Raymond's assessment, Alisa's strange behavior, the insurance policy, and now Devon's photo with my car. Ruiz didn't interrupt until I finished. "Are you safe right now?" "I think so. I'm at the shop." "Stay there." Her voice was calm but firm. "I can log your complaint, but I need to be straight with you. This is circumstantial. We need more before I can get a warrant." "What kind of more?" "Direct evidence, a witness, recordings, bank transfers, something that directly connects them to the tampering." I looked at the camera I'd installed. "I'm working on it. Be careful, Jefferson. If what you're saying is true, you're living with someone who's already tried to kill you once. I know. Document everything. Keep copies somewhere safe, not at home, and check your food. That last bit sent a chill through me. I hadn't even considered poison. I'll call you tomorrow, Ruiz promised. The call ended and I sat in the quiet of my office. Rain had started to fall, pattering against the metal roof. My phone buzzed with a message from Alisa. Dinner's ready. Don't be late again. I stared at those words, imagining her in our kitchen, cooking like a loving wife while plotting my death. The rain fell harder, turning the parking lot into a sheet of black glass. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as I pulled out of the shop, whispering to myself, dinner with a woman who almost killed me. I couldn't sleep. Every creak in our house made me flinch. Every time Alisa turned in bed beside me, I wondered if she was reaching for something sharp. I started staying later at the shop, telling her I had a backlog of repairs. It wasn't entirely a lie. I did have work, but mostly I needed space to think. 3 nights after installing the camera, I decided to set a trap. The shop was dark except for the single desk lamp in my office. I'd parked my backup car, an old Chevy I kept for parts runs, right in the camera's view. Then I killed the main lights and waited, phone in hand, crouched behind a stack of winter tires in the corner. My back ached, my eyes burned, but adrenaline kept me alert. At 1:12 a.m., headlights swept across the lot. I recognized the purr of Alisa's SUV immediately. I'd tuned that engine myself last fall. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched her park at the edge of the lot, just out of the streetlight's reach. She stepped out wearing a dark hoodie pulled tight around her face, moving with purpose. No hesitation. This wasn't her first time. I remembered how she used to bring me lunch during our first year together, how she'd lean against the hood of whatever car I was working on and talk about our future. Now here she was, slipping beneath my backup Chevy with what looked like wire cutters. I'd been right. My hands trembled as I started recording on my phone, capturing a second angle of what the security camera was already documenting. The crunch of gravel under her boots. The soft metallic snip. The careful, practiced movements of someone who'd done this before. 7 minutes. That's how long it took her to try to kill me again. When she drove away, I waited another 20 minutes before crawling out from my hiding spot. My legs had gone numb, but I barely noticed. I extracted the memory card from the camera with shaking fingers and plugged it into my laptop. The footage was clear, clearer than I'd hoped. Alisa's face was visible when she turned toward the streetlight. The wire cutters caught a glint as she positioned them on the brake line. The deliberate cut, the careful inspection of her work, everything. I sent both videos, the security footage and my phone recording, to Detective Ruiz with a simple message. It happened again. Need help. Then I forwarded the same to Raymond with, can you confirm this is intentional damage? I needed his expert eye as backup. Dawn was breaking when I finally drove home. Alisa was still asleep, or pretending to be. I showered, made coffee, and waited. Ruiz replied first. Don't confront her. I'll start the paperwork. Come to the station at 10. Raymond's message arrived minutes later. That's a deliberate cut, Douglas. Clean and precise. I'll sign whatever affidavit you need. The kitchen filled with morning light as Alisa finally emerged in her silk robe, looking rested and calm. She poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter. You worked late, she said. Did you sleep well? I looked at her over my mug. This woman who'd shared my bed for years, who'd twice tried to kill me now. Like a man who knows exactly what's coming, I said, keeping my voice steady. Something flickered in her eyes, uncertainty, maybe fear, but her smile never wavered. And what's coming, Douglas? Change, I said simply. Big change. I finished my coffee, grabbed the memory card I'd made a copy of, and headed for the door. Don't wait up. Got meetings all day. The drive to the police station was surreal. Traffic lights, stop signs, normal people going about their Thursday morning. None of them knowing I was driving with evidence that my wife wanted me dead. In my rearview mirror, I spotted Alisa's SUV about half a mile back. She was good, keeping distance, staying just visible enough in traffic to track me. But I knew that car's shape like I knew my own name. Keep watching, Alisa, I muttered, tapping the dash camera I'd installed that morning. I'm recording you too. I couldn't concentrate on work. Every car that rolled into the shop looked like a blur. Every customer's voice sounded distant. My hands moved through familiar motions, checking oil levels, testing spark plugs, tightening bolts. But my mind was elsewhere, replaying the footage of Alisa crouched beside my car, wire cutters in hand. Just before noon, my phone buzzed. Detective Ruiz's number. "Jefferson," I answered, stepping outside where the spring air carried the scent of fresh-cut grass from the park across the street. There was a time when that smell reminded me of weekend cookouts with Alisa. Now it just felt like another memory tainted. "Douglas, we've got him." Ruiz's voice was calm, but carried an edge of satisfaction. "Devin Carver. Brought him in about an hour ago." My heart skipped. "Based on what?" "Timestamps on your footage match him being in the area. Plus, we found a witness at the gym who confirms he and Alisa met regularly." "He's nervous, Douglas, the kind of nervous guilty people get." I leaned against the brick wall of my shop, suddenly needing the support. "He's talking?" "Not yet, but he will." She paused. "If he confirms the plot, I can request a pre-approved arrest warrant tonight. Judge Winters owes me a favor." "And Alisa?" I asked, my voice catching despite my efforts to stay composed. "One step at a time. Come by the station at 4. I want you to see this through." I hung up and stared at the phone in my hand, remembering the night Alisa had insisted we needed more life insurance. "It's just being responsible," she'd said, curled against me on the couch, her voice soft and reasonable. I'd signed without question, believing it was about security, our future. What a fool I'd been. The afternoon dragged. I closed the shop early, telling my part-timer I had a family emergency. In a way, that wasn't a lie. The police station smelled like coffee and industrial cleaner. Ruiz met me in the lobby, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, expression serious but satisfied. "He broke," she said simply, leading me down a hallway lined with motivational posters and wanted bulletins. Didn't even take an hour. "What did he say?" Ruiz gestured for me to enter a small room with a TV monitor. "See for yourself." On screen, Devin sat at a metal table, his gym-built physique somehow diminished by the fluorescent lighting. His tattooed arms were crossed defensively. "I didn't cut any brake lines," he was saying to an officer off camera. "That was all her." "But you knew about it," came a male voice. Devin's shoulders slumped. "Yeah. She talked about it, said Douglas was worth more dead than alive with that policy. But I didn't think she'd actually do it, man." My stomach clenched. Hearing it confirmed that the woman I'd built a life with had calculated my death's financial benefit made me grip the edge of the table. "So when did you first discuss this plan?" the officer asked. "I don't know. February." She said they were struggling with the shop bills. Said Douglas was dragging her down. Devin rubbed his face. "Look, I like the attention, okay? She'd come to my sessions, we'd go for drinks, it was just talk at first. But then it wasn't." Devin looked straight at the camera. "She said she'd split the money if I helped her. $500,000, man. I didn't think she'd really do it." Ruiz stopped the video. "There's more, but that's the gist. He admits knowledge of premeditation, conspiracy, the whole package." I sat heavily in the closest chair. "He helped her plan my death for money, and he'll testify to that." Ruiz leaned against the table. "I'm submitting for the warrant tonight. We'll pick her up at dawn." The drive back to the shop felt surreal. The world looked the same streets, same buildings, but everything had changed. My wife had tried to kill me, twice, and tomorrow she'd face consequences. I pulled into the parking lot as dusk settled, noticing a familiar car, Alisa's SUV, parked in the shadows. The shop was supposed to be empty. When I unlocked the door, lights were already on. Alisa sat in my office chair, wineglass in hand, looking perfectly at ease. "Working late?" she asked, her voice cool. I stayed near the door. "Shop's closed." She swirled the red wine, studying it. "Devin missed our meeting today." "Did he?" Her eyes flickered to mine. "You think you've won?" she said quietly. Something in her tone made my skin crawl, but I kept my expression neutral. "Not yet, but soon." Her smile tightened, transforming her face into something I barely recognized. "Be careful, Douglas. You don't know who you're dealing with." As if on cue, My phone buzzed. I glanced down to see Ruiz's message. Warrant ready at dawn. I looked back at Alisa, this stranger wearing my wife's face. I think I do. She set down her glass and stood, gathering her purse. As she brushed past me toward the door, I caught a whiff of her perfume, the same scent I'd once found comforting. I watched her drive away, then locked the shop door with trembling hands. Tomorrow ends it, I whispered to the empty room. Morning broke in streaks of orange and pink across a sky that didn't care about betrayal or justice. I'd barely slept, watching the hours tick by on my bedside clock from the motel room I'd checked into the night before. At 5:45 a.m., I pulled into the courthouse parking lot. The building stood silent, its stone facade just beginning to catch the sunrise. I sat in my truck, hands still on the wheel, trying to steady my breathing. This was the day my marriage officially died. Not that there'd been much left to kill. Detective Ruiz's sedan rolled in at 6 a.m. sharp. She stepped out, dressed in a formal black blazer, her badge gleaming at her belt. 2 uniformed officers followed in a patrol car behind her. "Morning," she said, her face serious but kind. "You sleep at all?" I shook my head. "Not really." She nodded like she'd expected that answer. Judge Winters signed everything at midnight. Devon's statement sealed it, and Ellis's technical affidavit about the cutting marks matching on both vehicles put it over the top. "So it's happening?" "It's happening," she confirmed. "You sure you want to be there for this?" I remembered the kitchen arguments, the cold smiles, the way Alisa had looked at me these past months, like I was already a ghost. "I need to see it." Ruiz studied my face, then nodded again. "You can follow us, but stay in the car until I signal. I don't want her claiming you intimidated her or something." The drive to what had once been our home felt like traveling to a foreign country. Familiar streets turned strange in the early morning light. When we pulled into the driveway, the house looked peaceful, curtains drawn, my wife's gardenia plant still blooming by the porch steps. I hung back as instructed, watching through the windshield as Ruiz and the officers approached the front door. The taller officer positioned himself to the side while Ruiz knocked firmly. Seconds ticked by. Then the door swung open. Alisa stood there in her silk robe, hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. Even from the driveway, I could see her practiced smile of welcome. She'd always been good at appearances. The officers followed her inside. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then Ruiz appeared at the door and motioned for me. Walking up that path felt like crossing a battlefield. Inside, the familiar scent of Alisa's expensive candles hung in the air. She sat ramrod straight on our living room sofa, the officers flanking her, Ruiz standing across the coffee table. "Mr. Jefferson," Ruiz said formally, "as I was explaining to your wife, we have evidence regarding the tampering with your vehicle's brake lines on 2 separate occasions." Alisa's eyes locked on mine, her expression a mask of indignant disbelief. "This is ridiculous, Douglas." "Tell them." I stayed silent. Ruiz continued, laying out the case methodically. The camera footage, the photos from Ellis's inspection, the timestamp correlation with Devon's social media. With each piece of evidence, Alisa's serene facade cracked a little more. "This is all circumstantial," Alisa insisted, voice steady but higher than normal. "I don't even know what brake lines look like." That's when Ruiz played her trump card. She slid a document across the table, Devon's signed statement, and tapped it with one finger. "Mr. Carver seems to think you know exactly what they look like and how to cut them." The color drained from Alisa's face so quickly I thought she might faint. She snatched up the paper, eyes darting across the page. "He's lying," she whispered. Then louder, "He's lying. We have video footage of you tampering with the second vehicle," Ruiz said calmly, pulling out her phone and playing the damning clip. There was my wife, clear as day, crouched beside my backup car with something glinting in her hand. That's when Alisa snapped. She lunged toward Ruiz, screaming, "He lied! Devon did it! He cut the lines!" The officers moved instantly, restraining her as she struggled. Her carefully maintained composure shattered completely. "Alisa Jefferson, you're under arrest for attempted murder," Ruiz stated, her voice cutting through the chaos. One of the officers began reciting her rights as they secured her wrists with handcuffs. Alisa's eyes found mine again, but they weren't the eyes I'd known. They burned with hatred so pure it almost had weight. "You'll regret this," she spat. "Everything we built, gone. Was it worth it?" I took 2 steps forward, close enough to look directly into her face. "You already do," I said quietly. They led her out to the waiting patrol car, her silk robe billowing in the morning breeze. As the cruiser pulled away, Ruiz stood beside me in the driveway. "It's over," she said softly. I watched the taillights disappear around the corner, thinking of Devon's tearful confession, his claims of being manipulated while still admitting his part in it all. "Not until Devon faces his part," I said. 2 weeks crawled by like years. I kept the shop open, went through the motions, oil changes, alternator replacements, the steady rhythm of wrenches against metal that had always centered me. But nothing felt right. Every time the bell above the door jingled, I half expected to see Alisa walking in with that smile of hers, the one that used to make my day but now haunted my nightmares. The call from the DA's office came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was underneath a '98 Chevy when my phone buzzed. The voice on the other end sounded tired, apologetic. "Mr. Jefferson, I wanted to update you personally. Devon Carver has disappeared." My hand gripped the wrench tighter. "Disappeared how?" "He made bail 2 days ago, emptied Ms. Jefferson's joint savings account, about $30,000, and crossed state lines. His GPS ankle monitor was found in a rest stop bathroom in Mississippi. The fluorescent lights overhead suddenly seemed too bright. So he's gone? Just like that? We've issued warrants, but without him." The prosecutor paused. "The case against your wife becomes more complicated. His testimony was central to proving premeditation." I rolled out from under the car, oil-stained rag clutched in my fist. "You have the videos?" "Her prints on the cutters. Evidence that shows she tampered with your vehicle, yes, but Devon's testimony connected that to the insurance policy, the planning, the intent. Without him, she might walk," I finished. "Not walk, but maybe face lesser charges." After hanging up, I sat on my office floor, back against the wall, staring at nothing. The thought of Alisa back on the streets watching me, waiting, it stuck in my throat like engine grime. That night, the first letter arrived. It came in a plain county envelope, postmarked from the detention center. Her handwriting, neat controlled loops I'd seen on countless grocery lists and birthday cards, filled the page. "Douglas, this is all a misunderstanding. Devon manipulated me, used me. I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe me. Please drop the charges, we can start over. I still love you, Alisa." I crumpled it, threw it in the trash, then fished it back out and sealed it in a plastic bag. Evidence. 3 days later, another letter came. "Douglas, you're making a terrible mistake. Devon is gone because he knows the truth would come out, that this was all his idea. I was afraid of him. Help me and I'll explain everything." The third letter arrived 4 days after that. No greeting this time. "Devon can't hide forever. Neither can you. When I get out, and I will get out, we'll finish our conversation. You don't know what I'm capable of." My hands shook as I read it. I drove straight to the police station, letter in hand. Detective Ruiz took it carefully, sliding it into an evidence bag. "We'll add this to the file. Technically, she's allowed to send correspondence, but threats... Can you trace it? Make sure it's really from her?" Ruiz nodded. "We'll check the prison mailroom logs, confirm the handwriting." Nights stretched longer. I installed new security cameras at my apartment, changed my routines, kept looking over my shoulder. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Ruiz called the next day. "The letter's legitimate. Went through proper channels at the detention center. We've flagged her correspondence for review going forward." "What about Devon?" She sighed. "Nothing yet. But we'll find him." More days passed. Work blurred together. I started sleeping in the back office some nights, the shop feeling safer than my empty apartment. Then one evening, as I was locking up, my phone lit up with Ruiz's number. "We got him," she said, voice tight with satisfaction. I leaned against the cold brick wall. "Devon? Tried selling your wife's BMW to an undercover officer in Phoenix. Apparently he had the title and everything, Forged her signature. Officer recognized him from the bulletin we sent out. Relief flooded through me, so intense my knees nearly buckled. Is he talking? Singing like a canary. The DA's fast-tracking extradition. He'll be back in Louisiana by tomorrow afternoon. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like weeks. I'll be there. You don't need to come in, Douglas. We've got this handled. But I was already grabbing my keys, locking the shop door behind me. Let me rephrase. I'll be there. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the station parking lot. Ruiz was waiting on the steps, arms crossed, expression softening when she saw me. Let's finish this, I said, climbing out of the truck. She nodded once, understanding in her eyes. He's in custody, Douglas. Now we close it. 6 weeks crawled by like a car with 3 flat tires. Each morning I'd wake up wondering if today would be the day this nightmare finally ended. Each night I'd fall into bed still waiting. The county courthouse looked smaller than I remembered. Just weathered brick and tired wooden benches worn smooth by thousands before me. I sat on the prosecution side, hands folded, watching the back of Alisa's head. Her hair was pulled into a perfect low bun, not a strand out of place even after weeks in detention. Some habits die hard, I guess. Detective Ruiz nodded to me from her seat near the front, a silent reassurance. The courtroom buzzed with quiet conversation until the bailiff called us to order. All rise for the Honorable Judge Winters. I stood mechanically, eyes fixed on Alisa's back. She turned slightly, just enough for me to catch her profile, composed, confident, like we were at a dinner party, not her trial for trying to kill me. Remember when we used to host those summer cookouts? Alisa would spend hours arranging the patio furniture just right, making sure the napkins matched the plates. Everything had to look perfect. Now here she was, arranging her features into a mask of innocence. Her lawyer opened with exactly what Ruiz had warned me about. My client was manipulated by a predatory man who saw her as nothing more than access to insurance money. I nearly laughed. In all our years together, I'd never once seen Alisa manipulated into anything she didn't want to do. Their defense painted Devin as the mastermind and Alisa as his unwitting pawn. Ms. Jefferson believed she was helping Mr. Carver with a harmless prank, her lawyer insisted, gesturing to Devin at the adjacent defense table. She had no knowledge of his true intentions. Devin's jaw tightened. He'd rolled over on her completely during his separate questioning, but his lawyer had advised against testifying directly in her trial. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Marquez, called Detective Ruiz to the stand first. Detective, please explain the evidence that led to the defendant's arrest. Ruiz's testimony was methodical and devastating. She walked through the timeline of both brake tampering incidents, the footage timestamps and Raymond's technical affidavits, confirming the deliberate nature of the cuts. And both defendants' fingerprints were found on the wire cutters recovered from Ms. Jefferson's vehicle? Yes, Ruiz replied, along with traces of brake fluid consistent with both vehicles. Throughout Ruiz's testimony, I watched Alisa. She remained statue still, only her eyes moving, calculating. I recognized that look from our kitchen arguments. She was searching for weaknesses, places to strike. The morning stretched into afternoon. I testified briefly about discovering the first brake failure, the confrontation with Alisa afterward, and setting up the cameras. Her lawyer tried to paint me as paranoid, suggesting marital problems had clouded my judgment. Mr. Jefferson, isn't it true you and your wife were experiencing difficulties before these allegations? We were fine until she tried to kill me, I answered flatly. A few jurors shifted in their seats. The pivotal moment came during the prosecution's closing arguments. Marquez approached the jury box holding up a sealed evidence bag. The state would like to enter one final piece of evidence, the post-arrest confession of Devin Carver, recorded at Phoenix Police Department following his apprehension. Alisa's lawyer objected, but was overruled. The courtroom fell silent as Devin's voice filled the room. Yeah, I knew what she was planning. Alisa said Douglas was worth more dead than alive with that policy. I got the cutters from my cousin's garage. We figured it had to look like an accident. Yeah, we agreed to split it 50-50 after. For the first time, Alisa's composure cracked. Her shoulders stiffened, her breathing visibly changing. She turned in her chair, eyes finding mine across the courtroom. The mask had fallen completely. "You ruined everything," she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. I held her gaze. "You did that yourself." Judge Winters's voice pulled us back. "The jury will now retire to deliberate." They were out less than 2 hours. When they filed back in, I couldn't read their expressions. The foreman handed the verdict to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. Winters adjusted his glasses, scanned the paper, and looked up. On the count of attempted murder in the first degree, the jury finds the defendant, Alisa Jefferson, guilty. A soft exhale escaped me, part relief, part disbelief that it was finally over. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, the jury finds the defendant, Devin Carver, guilty. Officers moved forward to take them both into custody. As they cuffed Alisa, her eyes locked on mine one final time. No tears, no remorse, just cold fury. I stood, watching, neither triumphant nor angry, just relieved. The weight I'd been carrying since that night on County Road 9 finally lifted. I nodded once to Detective Ruiz, who smiled slightly in return. Outside, the afternoon sun felt brighter somehow. I paused on the courthouse steps, breathing in air that tasted like freedom. "Justice doesn't roar," I murmured to myself. "It hums." 1 month later, I unlocked the front door of Jefferson Auto Works just as the sun crested the line of pines across the street. The morning air carried that special kind of stillness, the kind that settles right before the world wakes up and starts demanding things. I flipped the sign to open and walked through the familiar routine. Lights on, coffee brewing, diagnostics computer booting up. The radio clicked on with the morning news, then shifted to a country station playing something about second chances. Seemed fitting. The shop smelled like it always had, steel and oil, with hints of the pine cleaner I used on the floors every night. But somehow it felt different. Lighter, maybe. I ran my hand along the edge of my workbench, remembering when I'd first installed it 8 years ago. Alisa had complained about the grease I'd tracked into the house that day. "You and those cars," she'd said. "Sometimes I think you love them more than me." Turns out she was right about that, at least. The cars never tried to kill me. The bell above the door jingled around 10. Detective Ruiz walked in carrying a manila folder and 2 coffee cups. Her steady presence had been my anchor through the trial and everything after. "Morning, Douglas," she said, handing me one of the cups. "Thought you might need a refill." "Thanks." I gestured to the chairs by the front desk. "Something official?" She nodded, opening the folder as we sat down. "Just wanted to deliver these personally. Final sentencing documents for both cases." I took the papers, scanning the legal language until I found what mattered. Alisa, 18 years with possibility of parole after 12. Devin, 8 years with eligibility after 5, plus restitution. 12 years, I murmured. "It's a fair sentence," Ruiz said. The DA pushed hard on the premeditation angle. "What about his testimony against her? Didn't that earn him something?" "It did. That's why he got 8 instead of 15. She leaned back. Devin folded the minute things got real. Alisa never cracked. Says something about both of them. I set the papers down. My hands weren't shaking anymore when I touched them. Progress, I supposed. "Thank you," I said finally, "for believing me, for following through." Ruiz's expression softened. "I've seen enough cases to know when someone's telling the truth, Douglas. You never once changed your story. Had no reason to. Truth doesn't need editing." After she left, I tucked the papers into my desk drawer. There was something final about having them, like closing a book after the last page. The rest of the morning passed in the steady rhythm of engines and tools and customer small talk. Around noon, Raymond Ellis stopped by with an invoice for parts he'd ordered for me. His garage had been my safety net when everything first happened. He'd even loaned me tools when I was rebuilding after the trial. "Here's your bill, Douglas," he said, sliding it across the counter. "Rotors came in cheaper than I thought." "Appreciate it, Raymond." He lingered, glancing around the shop. "Place looks good. Busy too, from the looks of your lot." I nodded. "Can't complain." "Good to see you smiling again," he said suddenly. "Been a long road." That caught me off guard. "I'm smiling." "You were when I walked in." He tapped the counter twice. "That's progress." After Raymond left, I caught my reflection in the chrome of an engine hoist. He was right. There was something different about my face these days. The tension around my eyes had eased. I looked like myself again, or maybe a newer version. The workday wound down as the afternoon stretched into evening. After the last customer left, I swept the floor, counted the register, and locked the garage bay doors. Some habits don't change, even when everything else does. I sat on the porch steps as dusk settled, listening to the distant hum of engines from the highway. The sound had once been background noise. Now it felt like a reminder that things keep moving forward, regardless of what tries to stop them. My gaze drifted to the empty space in the driveway where Alisa used to park. For a moment, I could almost see her there, stepping out with that smile that never quite reached her eyes. The image faded quickly, replaced by nothing but shadow and asphalt. I stood, locked the garage one final time, and turned off the porch light. The darkness felt clean somehow, peaceful. "Justice hums quiet like a tuned engine," I whispered to the night air, "and mine's running perfect." In my mind, a faint headlight glow flickered once, just memory, and faded into night. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.